Welcome to my channel, The Binge Eating Therapist. I'm Sarah, former binge eater turned psychotherapist, and today I want to talk about eating when you're bored. If you've clicked on this video, chances are you are familiar with that feeling of restlessness, feeling a bit agitated, not comfortable in your own skin, unstimulated, seeking some kind of stimulation, and nothing seems to quite cut it than the food. So it could be that you're somebody who finds themselves snacking a lot when they're bored, or it may be that you're having full blowout binges. I think dealing with this boredom part is key when it comes to making peace with our relationship with food. But if you clicked on this video expecting here's a few tips about how not to binge when you're bored, you might be disappointed. Although I may be biased, but I think I'm offering something better. Before doing this video, I watched some of the videos already on YouTube about boredom eating. And just to give you a flavor of the advice out there, one of the videos said, get yourself a jigsaw puzzle because then you have something to do with your hands and you won't eat. Another one was saying, well, it means that you don't have enough purpose and stimulation in your life. You've got to find things that you're passionate about. The problem with that kind of advice is I hear the jigsaw thing and my mind takes me back to, I remember binging while doing a jigsaw puzzle. There is no way that doing a jigsaw puzzle would have worked for me when I was in that agitated, stimulation seeking mode and wanting food. Also, this idea that we can transform our lives into this passionate, meaningful, purposeful experience all the time, I don't think is realistic. And I think that kind of pressure that's on people, this idea we're supposed to be living these really meaningful lives and that meaning should look a certain way, isn't helpful. That said, all is not lost. I do think there's absolutely something we can do about that compulsive eating when we're bored. Firstly, I want to talk about what boredom actually is. Boredom is not just having nothing to do. We live in a world that's set up with loads of things for us to do, loads of ways to distract ourselves. But boredom is actually having nothing to do that appeals to us. As Tolstoy put it, it's the desire for desires. Another way I heard it put, which I loved, and I wish I could remember where I heard it, was that boredom is a type of sadness that things aren't the way we want them to be. When we are bored, we are left alone with ourselves. We are left alone in our minds, and if our minds are not a safe place to be, that can feel intolerable. So we talk about boredom as this just, oh, I'm just bored, there's just nothing for me to do. I think of boredom as this deep existential experience of being with ourselves. I think the answer lies in developing the skill of being bored. Boredom can actually be a desirable thing. They did some studies where they took a group of people, and half of the group of people had to do a really boring task of reading the phone book, the other half didn't. And then both groups had to come up with creative ideas about what to do with the paper cup. In the group that had had the boring task, they'd been forced into a state of boredom before doing the creative task, came up with more ideas, more creative ways of what they could do with the cup. So it appears that boredom stimulates our creativity. And I often talk about binge eating recovery as a creative process. You can turn it into a battle if you want, but I think the people that battle binge eating, because you're both sides of the battle, you are battling with yourself and it is exhausting and soul destroying. If you view this journey as a creative process, what you're doing rather than battling and trying to get rid of something that doesn't want to go anywhere is that you are creating things that are incompatible with binge eating. So, as an example, developing different relationships with our feelings makes binge eating less compulsive. When boredom, when this idea of being in our own minds with ourselves feels intolerable, then we experience compulsions. We experience compulsions to distract, to consume, to escape, and to do other activities. And it's not to say that any of those things are wrong or that we shouldn't be doing those things. But when it's a compulsion, there isn't a sense of choice. Now, these things, the urge to distract, the urge to numb, is controlling you, and your sense of choice and freedom and autonomy is just gone. That's one of the most distressing parts. Researchers have also found that when we are bored, we're more likely to do something called autobiographical planning. This is that bigger picture thinking. This is looking at our lives, making plans for the future, coming up with ideas. This is all tied in with creativity as well. If we are always distracted, always rushing from one thing to the next, we don't take that time. We don't get that opportunity to actually think about our lives and what it is that we might want. Now, that's a really scary thing. If you really related to what I said earlier about boredom being a type of sadness, that things aren't the way we want them to be. When we're bored, when we're in our own minds, there's an opportunity to listen to our inner wisdom, to ask ourselves what gives our life meaning. And I'm not talking about some grand purpose that's going to change millions of lives. I'm thinking about just the way we interact with our loved ones, just the way we show up in our work, the way we show up in our lives and for ourselves. Purpose and meaning can be found in every little thing throughout life. Yet when we use those words, we think it's got to be some big, grand picture. And I think that belief contributes to this idea that we're feeling sad, that we're not doing enough, we're not being enough, our lives aren't purposeful enough. When we're gone from this planet, did we leave enough of an impact? All those kinds of questions could arise in boredom. And there's a lovely Dorothy Parker quote that says the cure to boredom is curiosity, is being curious. It's not judgment. If you're left in your own mind and you slip straight into judgment, you're going to want to escape that. I would. So how can we develop the skill of boredom? I would start by saying, choose it. Choose to be bored. Choose to practice this experience. But rather than just waiting for boredom to come to you, because sometimes it's upon us before we even realize it, go and seek it out. Go and try to be bored, even if it's just for 5-10 minutes. For some of you, that could look like driving somewhere in your car without putting the music or a podcast on. For someone else, it might just be 10 minutes having a cup of tea or coffee with no distractions. If we can get curious about this discomfort, what this boredom thing is for us, that's where the seeds of change start. That's where creativity breeds, and we will get ideas which will help us to get unblocked in whatever it is we're feeling blocked with. And when exploring your boredom, I would invite you to try to find it in your body. What does boredom actually feel like at the sensory level? For me, it was a sort of agitation. I felt like I wanted to just rip my skin off and get out of this body. I felt trapped in this body. I felt trapped in this life. I felt trapped in my compulsive behaviors around food. But there's two experiences to a feeling. There's the body experience, and then there's the story in the mind. And when we try to sort of look at them individually, that's when they feel more manageable. When they come together, we've got the sensation in our body and a story spinning in our mind. We feel like we can't cope with that. When we try and ground the physical feelings, can I tolerate the physical feeling of boredom? It's normally just a bit of tension, a bit of restlessness. That's not comfortable, but it's okay. The difficult part is the story that my mind spins about it. And that's where the curiosity comes in and the gentle questioning. So my invitation to you is go be bored, go investigate it, and let me know how you get on.